the Washington Post had a pretty lengthy piece recently about how the FDA has kind of scaled back when it comes to oversight of the food industry, and the food industry has taken complete advantage of the lack of oversight. So let me give you an example. There has been an explosion of food additives in our food, so processed food, and that includes chemical preservatives, flavorings, and thickening agents, right?
Now, that sounds really good.
Thickening agents.
Yeah, I'd love to have some thickening agents.
Look, so some of the things that are considered additives are very simple ingredients that we use in everyday cooking, like vinegar or salt, right? Mm-hmm. But there are other chemicals that have now entered the market that the FDA either doesn't know about or simply is turning a blind eye to. So Michael Taylor, who is the Deputy Commissioner for the Food and Drug Administration, said the following to the Washington Post, and I think that this is a very troubling statement. "We simply do not have the information to vouch for the safety of many of these chemicals."
He's the FDA Deputy Commissioner for Food. That is not a positive sign. So, now look, I'm kidding around about the thickening agent. I don't really know what it is, but it's obvious that I've had some. Okay. But there's a reason for the FDA. It's to make sure that our food is not, and our drugs are not poisoned.
Right.
Pretty good government office. Even if you like smaller government, my guess is you're like, let's let that one stand.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the problem is that they have changed procedures.
Yes, they have.
Now, look, some of it is understandable because sometimes in order to add preservatives or different things to your different products, it would take over a year. It would sometimes take years to go through that process. So you want to speed up that process, I understand it. But if you give them an inch with corporations, unfortunately, they're going to take a mile so that they can make an extra buck all along that mile.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. So there are ingredients that might be considered additives, but they are generally recognized as safe. So salt, vinegar, generally recognized as safe. So if those are the types of additives that you are including in your product, then you should be able to get that approved fairly quickly, right? Now, things like that have already been approved, but I'm talking about other ingredients that are now entering the market. Now, as a result of the lack of oversight from the FDA, people are suffering from serious health issues from these additives, including asthmatic attacks, serious bouts of vomiting, intestinal-tract disorders, and other health problems. Now, let me tell you how the policy has changed within the FDA and why the food industry is taking full advantage of it. So there was a voluntary certification system that has nearly replaced one that relied on more formal, time-consuming reviews where the FDA, rather than companies, made the final determination on what is safe. The result is that consumers have little way of being certain that the food products they buy won't harm them. So think about that for a second. This new system relies on the food industry to police itself, to determine on its own whether these additives are safe for human consumption. Now, when you have companies that have a profit motive, do you think they're going to really do a thorough investigation on additives for their products? I mean, libertarians would say yes, because the market will decide, right?
And after your kid's already dead from the food that he ate, well, the market will decide that we should go in a different direction if they got the right information. Anyway, look, all these additives aren't going to kill your kids. Hopefully, most of them.
They'll just give them serious, intestinal issues, but that's all.
Right, and so, but it is our health that's at stake here. And in the 5 decades that the FDA has been around, the number of additives has spiked from 800 to more than 9,000. Right, so they're piling on here. And when you make it voluntary, of course they're going to want to say, well, yeah, I mean, other than the salt, we also put in this other thing. But don't worry about it, because the whole idea was the FDA was worried. The reason they made the switch was they were saying, well, the process is so cumbersome, people aren't reporting the additives. Yes. They're just going around the system. So let's try to fix that. And I guess what happened after they changed the process to make it easier, people aren't reporting most of the additives anyway. They're like, it turns out nobody's minding the store. Yeah. If an additive is really dangerous, we won't report it to the FDA. And the ones that were supposed to be, this system, new system, was supposed to be for the salt and the vinegar.
Yes.
Like, no-brainers.
Generally recognized as safe ingredients.
Right, already recognized as safe ingredients. Instead, they've now adopted it so that that system is used for all additives.
And
right?
also, there are issues with ingredients like caffeine. So, for instance, the FDA approved caffeine use in sodas, and then all of a sudden, it's being used in everything, including waffles, like frozen waffles, which is kind of crazy. And by the way, Michael Taylor makes another statement in this piece. He says, "We aren't saying we have a public health crisis, but we do have questions about whether we can do what people expect of us."
Yeah, that's a problem. Again, if you're running the Food and Drug Administration and you're saying, we're not really doing what you think we're doing, which is keeping your food safe.
Yeah.
So you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. I mean, by the way, why are they adding caffeine to the waffles? To make them more addictive, right? So then you don't know why you want that waffle because it's got caffeine in it and you got addicted to it, right? So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. And here's the guy in charge of food at the FDA saying, you better watch out. We don't really know what's in it, and this thing's running amok.